Hello, everyone. How y'all doing? Now, this honestly is a statement that I probably would have said even 4 years ago, but I especially feel that way today, which is the fact that if you have an AMD card, I genuinely think you're just getting a better experience on Linux. I mean, I know ever since RDNA 4, I think the perception that people have had that like AMD drivers are like really bad is kind of starting to wither away, but I think that's mostly just because Nvidia drivers, for some reason, ever since the 50 series came out, they've just gotten pretty bad. And so now it's kind of like, well, are AMD drivers actually that bad compared to Nvidia drivers? Honestly, to me, I don't really care necessarily because I'm fairly certain that when people have these discussions, they're specifically talking about Windows. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I've always felt like AMD drivers have been pretty stable on Linux, at least since 2022. Of course, I can think of a couple of instances where there might have been some like weird, I could only describe as like a driver crash. At least that's how it felt at the time. Though, of course, this was a different era of Linux, and I can't even really entirely be certain if it was actually a problem with the AMD drivers or if it was something else. Maybe with Wayland, maybe with X11. I'm not entirely sure. But regardless, I do want to talk about the fact that if you have an RDNA 2 card, you can actually already use FSR 4. Now, I know I made that video months ago where I was like, I'm not really that excited for FSR 4 coming to older generations. And that's because my personal priorities aren't really with upscalers, it's with other things when it comes to advancements in graphics. But I guess as long as we keep relying on upscalers, I might as well at least share the fact that, hey, if you have an RDNA 2 card and you want to start using FSR 4 and you don't want to use Optiscalers or other, third party software to kind of brute force, if you're on Linux, I feel like the process is probably a lot easier. And let me explain to you. So, one thing I do want to note is that Proton Experimental very recently actually enabled support for FSR 4 and RDNA 3, and that's obviously because the Steam Deck has a graphics card that's based on RDNA 3. The only thing is that enablement seems to only work with RDNA 3, which also means that RDNA 4 cards for some reason don't seem to work with the whole FSR 4 override, which is really weird. And that's why for a very long time, you still kind of had to use, I don't know, either Proton GE or Proton Catchy OS or Proton EM if you have an RDNA 4 card and you want to use FSR 4, which it's hilarious to think about because this upscaler was specifically designed for RDNA 4, but it doesn't work out of the box, and you need to use a different version of Proton, which is hilarious. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know if that was an oversight on Valve's part. I don't know, but regardless, very recently, let me just open Proton Plus. I don't even know why I closed it, but yeah, we got a new version of Proton Catchy OS, and the really cool part is that I wonder if you can see release notes here. There it is. The really cool part about this newer version of CatchyOS is that it actually does enable. It allows supports for FSR 4.1.1 because I believe they updated one of the DLLs. And the cool thing is that now it seems to work very similarly to Proton Experimental, where it just does the override automatically. You don't even have to use any environmental variables. The only difference is that this doesn't just work with RDNA 3, it also works with RDNA 4 and even RDNA 2. And if you have a handheld, you still technically need to use the FSR 4 upgrade environmental variable. But hey, on Windows, you can't even do that, which is really funny. But honestly, obviously, that's AMD's fault. They're the ones that are just vendor locking the actual upscaler because right now it's relying on int 8, and int 8 does work on older gens, and so it's not about support, it's just AMD arbitrarily locking support for it. And don't get me wrong, at first I was like, why are they doing that? It's so lame. I think I kind of understand why, because there's some games where FSR 4 is not really behaving correctly with RDNA 2. This time I can't actually fault AMD. They might actually have a point. Like, it's actually not behaving correctly. But anyway, while we're here, something I did want to bring up about Proton Plus, it's actually something that I've been meaning to talk about for a while, which is the fact that if you're someone who, you're not really used to using environmental variables and Steam, launch options, something really cool is that you can actually go to the games section. And if you go to, for example, we're going to use Yakuza Kiwami 3. So you click here to modify, and then I'm going to enable Wayland because if I go to advanced, you'll notice here that it'll give me the option to enable HDR, which I think is really cool. And then, if we were using older versions of Proton, or for example, if we have an APU, we would have had to use this command line, this launch option, which is FSR 4 upgrade, because if we do this, you'll notice here that it upgraded the launch command preview. So this would be the command in question. Now, I don't really need to do this because, again, it does the override automatically, so this is actually not necessary. And there's a couple of other options, like, for example, if the game supports different graphics API, you can usually, for example, if you click DirectX 11, I'm pretty sure it'll do a dash DX11. Yep, that's the one. As well as, a bunch of other options, like there's one for F-Sync, there's one for local shade cache. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm just gonna tell you right now, I like this, but I don't actually think I need to do this. Mainly because there's actually some commands that are missing that I use. For example, one of them is Wayland DRV primary monitor. And well, here I'm actually gonna put DP1. Now the thing is, the reason why I need this is because Wayland doesn't exactly do primary monitors correctly. There's some like weird hack that they have to do for normal desktop, but for gaming, it will still default to what it considers to be the primary monitor, which isn't always what's actually set up on your computer. And so I always need to use this command in order to select which monitor I actually want to be the primary one. Which, granted, I do actually find this command to be pretty cool because it kind of allows you to just kind of, manually assign monitors for specific games, which I think for me personally, it actually provides a more consistent result compared to just relying on your either the game's built-in primary monitor or even your computer, which personally speaking, I actually prefer this way. This is actually something that I don't even necessarily get on Windows. I always have to select the primary monitor on the actual Windows settings. And for a long time, it used to be the same thing here on Linux, unless the game actually allows you to select a different monitor. But this environmental variable, I feel like does a much better job of actually making sure, hey, this is the monitor that you're going to use for this game. No ifs or buts. So I actually like this command. But yeah, and also there's the Proton prefer SDL. I'm not entirely sure if this command is here. Let me actually see. Go to advanced. Yeah, I don't think it's here. Yeah, I don't think it's here. And that's actually a problem because if I don't have this command, for some games, I'm not going to be able to use my gamepad, which is a problem. So I'm just going to copy this. This is honestly the only thing I need. We're going to go to Steam, Properties, and we're going to paste it here. And then here, we're going to change to DP1 because I'm using my 1080p monitor. And so also, we are using the latest version, right? Yep, we are using the latest version. So let's click play. So yeah, the same machine has been kind of a mess. I wish it didn't come out with the current price that it has, but I guess it is what it is. Not really much we can do to stop that. And it's doing something that it shouldn't have. Oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot about something. So the Yakuza games are kind of weird with how it does the initial launch, especially the demos, where for some reason, I don't know if it's just accumulating like some cash, but like I don't know, it behaves really weirdly where the initial launch just doesn't really compute well. So sometimes I'll just have to let the game launch normally, which is really annoying. Just hold up. It'll probably launch on a different monitor, but that's fine. So here we would go to Japanese. Yeah, exactly. I know you guys aren't seeing on the screen, but it actually is playing the game. It's just on a different monitor. Just give me a couple of minutes. Give me a couple of minutes to fix this. Okay. Now close the game. Now let's go to properties and put this again. I think this time it should work. This is something that's very specific to Yakuza, to be honest. Like the way it behaves is just really weird. I did also notice that there seems to be a little, and it's doing it again. This is very odd. Must be something very specific to Wayland, maybe? Hang on. Like, for example, if I play... Let's go to... Hamura Hime. This one should work fine. It should, right? I wonder if this is DRM free. That's a question I have. Yeah, this one works fine. Or at least, I think it's supposed to work fine. Okay, there we go. Yes. Yeah, no, the game is working fine. Oh, well, I guess I'll just have to... Hang on. I guess I'll just have to do something else. Let's go to screen capture. Let's change to the 1440p monitor. Guess that's my only choice right now. Because it seems like the game's not really budging well with Wayland for some reason. It's really annoying, but it's fine. It's okay. Not the first time. I mean, there's a very good reason for why the native Wayland driver is still experimental. Because right now it's not really the smoothest thing imaginable. I mean, I like gaming on native Wayland because I think it's really cool. But, like, unfortunately, there are just some games that just behave very weirdly. So, yeah, I'll just have to launch it normally. It's fine. It's all good. All right, Japanese. Yeah, this was happening yesterday as well. So, that was kind of annoying. Let's go to settings, graphic settings, performance improvements. So, okay. I'm glad it has FSR 2 actually. Standard. I'm actually glad it has FSR 2 because I kind of want to see. I kind of want to show you just the clear difference in quality. Skip this. Skip. Oh my god, it already looks very blurry. I mean, this is ultra performance. This is in 1080p, right? Let's increase it to 1440p. Okay. It looks a little better. It looks a little sharper, but you know, it's still FSR2 of ultra performance. Just look at how bad this looks. Like, one thing about FSR, and not just FSR, but even just TAA in general, is like, you know how a lot of the times when people try to show like graphics comparison, like they'll usually like show footage of just characters walking slowly, just slow moving, and I usually look at that stuff and I'm just like, dude, that is not a realistic way of actually playing games. If I'm playing games, I'm doing this, all right? I'm doing this, and look at how shimmery it looks. Terrible, terrible image quality. But if I go to settings, graphic settings, improvements, and actually put with FSR 4.1.1, ultra performance, it does look better. It does look better. Now, I do still notice that there is an image quality degradation. Don't get me wrong. Like, that stuff for me is never not going to be noticeable. But it's definitely better. Like it is. Like it actually is better. So I can't actually take that away from it. It genuinely does look overall better. And I'm sure it will also, I'm fairly certain FSR 4.1.1, does have a bigger performance cost, but the only thing is I don't know if I can actually test this here because I'm pretty sure I can max out the frame rate here at 1440p, so I don't think there's really all that. Oh, and also there's also the CPU bottlenecks. Like this is Kamurocho. Kamurocho is notorious for bottlenecking the CPU, so I don't know if it's really feasible to test that. But in terms of the image quality, you can definitely know. In fact, now that I think about it, let's go to settings, the graphic settings, performance enhancement. Let's go to FSR2. And I know what you might be thinking. Hey, you're comparing FSR2 to FSR4. Shouldn't you compare FSR 3.1? First of all, I don't have an option to select FSR 3.1. And also, FSR 3 and FSR 2 are not that different. Let's be fucking honest. They're really not that different. So let's go to FSR 2 quality. And FSR 2 quality in this game actually does look pretty decent. It actually doesn't look too bad. But one thing I would also say is that I don't think there's a ginormous difference between. In fact, actually, I know this is gonna be really cursed, but let's actually go with 1080p. 1080p resolution. Because FSR tends to look the weakest with lower resolutions. So let's look at right there, like on that street. Just look at how buggy the street looks with FSR 2. Now let's go to settings. Let's go to graphics. Let's go to improvement. Let's go to FSR 4.1.1 and ultra performance. You'll notice that the street somehow looks better. It's not flickering. I mean, don't get me wrong. It still looks off. It still definitely looks off. Like, let's not pretend like this fixes problem. It does not. Like, it still looks off from a distance, but compared to even FSR2 quality, it's still better because it's not flickering. It's not flickering. It's not just doing the whole jagged thing. And this is ultra performance, which actually lowers at a lower resolution. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie. There is definitely some benefit to FSR 4. I'm definitely not one to say that FSR 4 is not an impressive piece of tech. I just personally prefer, other forms of graphics optimization that doesn't just involve lowering our standards of internal resolutions. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't think that FSR 4.1 is an impressive piece of tech. It is. I can't actually deny that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, the fact that you can kind of use this on RDNA 2 pretty early without really much that you need to do to actually force it on Linux, because like if you already use Proton Catchy OS, then honestly it's just a matter of upgrading it, and just like that you can use FSR 4. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, I kind of wanted to make this video just because I wanted to tell you, hey, if you have an AMD card, just move to Linux, man. Just move to Linux. It's clearly a better experience anyway. So yeah, anyway, that's all.